Archie.
Comics.
Welcome to the Aftershow show. For the podcast, we like comics because they have no bones. And I'm Joe Getcho.
And I'm Mike White. Today we'll break down the creative team and characters
Get to the
behind
chopper!
Archie vs. Predator, written by Alex Campi, penciled by Fernando Ruiz, and published in 2015 by Dark Horse and Archie Comics. Who is your daddy, and what
does he do?
As well as discuss listener comments from social media.
Yes, we will do all of those things, but not in really bad Arnold impressions because they're really bad and it kind of, I don't know, just tough to do for long term.
It's hard to keep it up, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, let's talk about Alex de Campi instead, who was born in Britain but made waves in the U.S. So she is a comic book writer, novelist, and even a music video director. And if there's one thing that she hates seeing in comics, it's nothing but darkness and violence. So in an interview in 2014, she called it a really juvenile way to approach comics. So her philosophy was that comics should be fun, which makes total sense when you look at Archie versus Predator, because it turns over-the-top horror into something brutal and hilarious at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason that they chose a teenage predator for this, in a 2015 interview, she admitted that she just wanted to mess with expectations. Predator stories, while great, tend to follow the same pattern. She figured, why not change the game? A rookie predator makes the story more interesting. Either Riverdale's finest would be wiped out in one page, or the predator would take one look at them, snort, and leave if it was an adult.
Mm-hmm.
So neither of those options were really fun. So she threw in a teenage predator on his first hunt, adding a whole new layer of chaos. But I felt like we kind of needed to see a little bit more of why he was a teenager and what he was doing. I think those elements would have made it more fleshed out rather than necessarily adding too much and taking away from the fun.
Well, it's funny that she says she hates seeing just darkness and violence because while this was very funny, there was a lot of extreme violence in it. And
Yeah.
I mean, darkness too. I mean, they talked about black magic and voodoo and stuff like that. So I'm almost like, are you sure you hate those things? Because they're in your story.
I think
it's a fun take on it. I guess, you know?
I think the fun take is what she was looking for, because it's like if it's nothing but darkness and violence, it's just dark, it's just a lot of bad things happening, and that's it. Whereas this, you get the funny parts, you get the jokes, you get the characters, so it makes it, less dark because you're having fun with it.
Right. Yeah, it's I mean, it's just one of those things. It's why people like slasher movies in the first place.
Yeah.
A lot of them, even Nightmare on Elm Street with Freddy, is very dark and violent, but he has a lot of really bad one-liners that come out of his mouth, and you're clearly not supposed to be taking it completely seriously, even in that movie, which is very much more in the horror direction. So
Yeah. Well, so then in 2019, she came back for Archie vs. Predator 2, doubled down on the insanity by mashing up the rebooted Archie comics with the rebooted Predator from the most recent film at the time. And there's some even crazier work that she's done. She wrote a graphic novel called Dracula Mother Cur, which was in 2020. And it is a neon-drenched, pulpy horror thriller. She also wrote for Blade Runner, an anime series called Blade Runner Black Lotus that was set in that universe. And because doing, comics and TV wasn't enough, she decided to become a novelist by writing The Scottish Boy in 2020, which was her first full-length book. And then she wrote Heartbreak Incorporated in 2021. And she also directs music videos, because why not? And she's even done a BBC masterclass on how to shoot them, so that's pretty cool, too. So it kind of seems like she really likes to be, involved in multiple genres and mashups and things like that. So it's kind of cool to have a writer who kind of, doesn't stick to just one thing, but is able to give us these sort of what if stories of, hey, what if Archie and the gang met the Predator? What would it be like? And make it and keep it fun and in universe for both of those universes too. So that's pretty fun. If you want to see more of her work or check out her music videos, you can go to alexdecampi.com or her YouTube channel, youtube.com/Alex@AlexDeCampi.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize that she'd done stuff with Blade Runner. That is a rare Ridley Scott film that I have not seen. I think it's from the 70s, maybe. I believe it's before he did Alien, but I might be wrong on that. But
let us know in the comments.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. But somehow I missed Blade Runner in my like film history or whatever that I've watched over the years. So
I don't know if I've seen it or not. If I did, it was so long ago that I don't remember it.
It's Harrison Ford, and it's where like all the sort of like cyberpunk aesthetic that's in a lot of video games and anime. I know that it originates with Blade Runner, but I don't know if I've actually seen Blade Runner. I think I've just seen things that are like inspired by that sort of aesthetic. So
kind of like if you've seen a lot of movies that are like, oh, it's Die Hard in space, or it's Die Hard here, or it's Die Hard there, but you haven't seen Die Hard. Right. It's kind of like it's like, well, you kind of have seen it because you've seen the effect it had on stuff, but I mean, you haven't seen it because you haven't seen the Bruce Willis doing his thing, but at the same time, you kind of get the premise.
I kind of get the gist of what it is. Fernando Ruiz is a comic book artist with over 25 years of experience in the industry. In addition to his work in comics, he's also worked as a corporate or commercial cartoonist, a storyboard artist, a toy designer, and a children's book illustrator.
Oh, wow.
So he's done a lot of things with his art outside of just doing comic books.
Well, it's kind of cool to design toys. Did you see if it was like, does he design toys that are characters that he has drawn, like licensed characters, or does he make his own original?
It seemed like it was just his own original stuff, like just designed to be toys. Although I had a little bit of trouble finding information, again, a lot of times with these artists, particularly if they're not American, I have trouble finding information. Ruiz actually is American, from what I could find out, but there's just not really a good bio on Wikipedia, so I had to kind of cobble together, excuse me, I had to kind of cobble together info from different sources to pull this up. But
that's usually what I do.
Yeah, he does have like an official website where it lists all of his credentials, and actually you can click on like, here's an image of a toy he designed, and here's
that's cool.
like a thing that he did storyboards for. Here's something he did for a commercial. So you can kind of get an example of like what his art looks like in different formats. But he actually graduated from Caldwell College with his Bachelor in Fine Arts, but he went on to attend the Joe Kubert School of Cartoon and Graphic Art in 1991. So if you've read a comic book between, I don't know, like the 90s and now, there's an ad in there for attend the Joe Kubert School of Cartoon and Graphic Art. That's something that you see like all the time. They recruit constantly to try and get artists to come there and study there. And it seems like what they teach specifically is sequential art and storytelling, so that you can leave that school and you'll have a good idea of not just how to draw proportions and stuff like that well, but how to stage an action scene, how to stage a scene where two people are talking to each other, and how to communicate those things to a reader using sequential art. So yeah, it totally makes sense that he went there. Most of his comic book work has actually been at Archie Comics, interestingly enough. So he's landed main artist gigs on Archie's Weird Mysteries, The Man from Riverdale, today's Archie vs. Predator, and the Eisner-nominated Life with Archie magazine. And Ruiz has also worked for other publishers such as Dark Horse, Image, Chapter House, and Dynamite. But since 95, which I guess is when he graduated, he's worked both as a professional penciler and as an instructor at the Joe Kubert School. And he's now risen to the role of academic supervisor.
Oh, wow.
So he actually has a YouTube channel, Fernando Ruiz Art, which is focused on instructional art for anybody that's interested in pointers to kind of refine their craft in drawing. So that's one of the great things about like the age that we live in, is that if there's a skill that you don't have, you can basically type that in on YouTube and find it. But if you like what he did in this book, or want to hear from somebody that actually is a professional instructor and a professional comic book penciler, you can check out his YouTube channel. So, yeah.
All right. Well, so we're going to go into a little history section here for Archie series as well as Predator films. So starting off with Archie, he was actually created in 1941 by John L. Goldwater, who was inspired by the Andy Hardy films. And his goal was to make America's newest boyfriend, a relatable teen who wasn't a superhero, just a guy trying to navigate high school. And so that's when Archibald Chick Andrews, or Archie for short, made his debut in Pep Comics number 22 in December 1941, drawn by Bob Montana and written by Vic Bloom.
Let me stop you right there. Why do I keep saying Archie Bunker? Is that from something else? Is that like a sitcom or something?
Yes.
Because I've got... It is?
Because that is...
I've got... The whole time I kept thinking Archie Bunker, and that's clearly not his name. So
that's Carol O'Connor, the kind of like gray-headed, like round face with the cigar, and
okay.
He's he
old.
plays Archibald Archie Bunker on All in the Family.
Oh, All in the Family. Okay, yeah, that's a sitcom that's a little before our time.
Yeah.
So it's weird that was what I was thinking.
Different Archie. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is Archie Andrews. So Goldwater actually named Archie after a schoolmate, saying he's basically a square, but squares are the backbone of America. So Archie's kind of like that everyman. And so that made him a contrast to the flashy superheroes of the time. But it was actually Dan DiCarlo in the 1950s who gave Archie his signature look with his classic red hair and his Letterman jacket. That was all DiCarlo's doing. So Archie's own comic, Archie Comics, launched in 1942 and ran for, decades. By issue 114, the title was simplified to just Archie, cementing its place in pop culture. And his TV debut came in 1968 with the animated series The Archie Show, which has a very catchy tune. In the 1970s, Archie expanded its reach with themed issues and a handful of unexpected crossovers, like Archie meets the Beatles, and later Archie meets Kiss, and then also leading to Archie meets the Ramones, continuing that tradition of rock stars. And these kind of crossovers brought like a new level of fun and unexpected twists, and so that's kind of like a fan favorite thing, is to see who's Archie going to be meeting with, in the next comic. But then things started to take a darker turn, like in 2013 with Afterlife with Archie, which took the lovable gang from Riverdale into dark horror territory. So they did kind of dip into supernatural themes in the past, like they had The Curse of the Werewolf in the 60s. So that was like they kind of dipped into the supernatural there a little bit. But Afterlife with Archie was really the first time that they leaned into the like dark horror stuff. And it was actually zombies. So like full on zombie horror. And so then later we get Chilling Adventures of Sabrina in 2014. And then, of course, Archie versus Predator, and then Archie versus Predator 2. So there's not really any, showing a sign of slowing down from this character that was, created in 1941. Like there's still more TV adaptations and modern reboots and all the kinds of things that we can do to bring them into the 21st century, which really proves that, like Archie himself, the comic is far from being out of touch. Like it's something that you can take it and you can put it into modern times and it will thrive. It's not like we talked about on the X-Files show, where when you take the X-Files and you try to make it modern, it loses something, because being made in the 90s is what really gave it that cool edge to it. And then having Mulder and Scully as the, main protagonists, really, it was their relationship that made it fun to see how will they go up against the crazy monster of the week. So it's kind of like Archie's kind of like that, except that these characters, you can put them in any time period and they'll be fun and they'll be themselves and it'll make for an interesting story, even if there's blood everywhere.
The CW did like a dark sort of take on these characters, just called Riverdale, that I've never
Oh
seen.
yeah.
But I know that there was like murder mystery type stuff going on, and it was like maybe Archie killed somebody, we don't know, and
Hmm.
that kind of a undercurrent going to it. So they were doing their sort of teen drama thing, but I know that it had like a very like dark undercurrent to it as well. So I would assume that kind of is in keeping with all these trends in the comics as well.
That would make sense.
So I researched the Predator franchise, and because I didn't want us to be here forever, I limited it just to the movies. Know that there are AVP comics, there are Predator comics, and
Hmm.
Dark Horse has had that license for a very long time. And in fact, those comics have directly influenced one of the movies. So when we move forward and talk about AVP, we're going to talk about really why that movie got made in the first place, and it has a lot to do with Dark Horse. So,
Okay.
but the Predator films are a science fiction franchise that follows an intelligent race of alien hunters known as the Yahucha. The
Yahucha?
Yahucha.
Yahucha.
It's spelled Yautja, but
Yautja.
apparently it's Yahucha.
Yahucha. I got some good
I-
Yahucha back here if you want to take a drink. That's what it sounds like. It's like
It does. It does.
Yahucha.
It could sound like something even worse. You're a Yahucha
Let's
mama.
not go there on our
Um,
clean comic book podcast.
But they live in a society that revolves around trophy hunting other species across the galaxy for sports,
Hmm.
and that philosophy inevitably brings them into conflict with humanity. So, I mean, their weapons, they normally have these sort of twin blades that come out of their wrist. That's sort of an iconic thing. They have the shoulder-mounted blaster that they always have that can like blow a hole in things, and it's got those three little red lights that are iconic that you can see on things when they're
Mhm.
when they're tracking somebody. They also, have infrared vision, so they can detect heat, and they can turn themselves invisible with their personal cloaking fields.
And
I guess they
apparently
have those
they're-
nets too that they fire out.
that like shrink. Well,
Uh-huh.
and they have the little disc things that like
Oh yeah, the
you can throw it or you can just cut with it.
mhm.
But
Yeah, they have those circular discs as well.
and their like regular vision is apparently it's like just blood red. Because it was
Yeah.
weird because like when he takes off the helmet, you think that he's just going to see normal, and the helmet is what makes him see in infrared. And they can kind of change too, because like
Mhm.
he was like looking at flashlights in Predator 2, I think, and switching displays. Like you see his display change.
Sure.
But like when he takes off the helmet, it's like this, everything's just red. And I wonder if that's like the rage. It's like all they see is hunting and killing. Like that's just their genetics. It's not like, oh, we're a society that likes to go and hunt things. It's like blood, everything is red, everything is hunt, kill, what's
Yeah.
worthy. Like they're almost like they almost really are beasts because of that. Like more beast than man kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting that they have that sort of animalistic urge, but they're supported by all of this advanced technology.
Mhm.
So they must have some kind of society that functions well enough to have scientists and
Or maybe they're like the Pac-Man.
inventors and things. Oh yeah, there you go. They
We need
just go
things
across
to
the
make us
universe
go.
looking for things to make them go.
Or hunt. They're looking for things to make them hunt.
Exactly. Yeah, we look for things.
That
Things
help us
to
hunt.
make us hunt. That's
Hunt
we
you!
finally hear what they sound like in English, and that's what
That
they
would be
sound
funny.
like.
They're a little. Oh, I'm so sorry. Did I offend you? I did not mean
yeah.
to. It's okay.
But they make more of like a clicky sort of sound when you hear them. Yeah,
Yeah.
like that when you hear them talk. So, but the franchise began in earnest in 1987 film Predator, directed by John McTiernan, written by brothers Jim and John Thomas. You're over there cracking up, and it's cracking me up. And starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jesse Ventura, and Carl Weathers. And if I had a nickel for each of those actors that have become a state governor in the U.S., I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
And this movie also features the handshake that was felt around the world when they
Yes.
meet up, and they're like, and then
the sort of bro with the
Yeah.
2 muscular arms. That is everywhere on the internet. So if you don't know where that's from, it is
it's from
Predator.
Predator.
Yeah. Yeah, the two super muscular dudes giving each other the handshake.
I think they were actually bodybuilding rivals too, like at the time.
Yeah.
So that was kind of why it was like they had that sort of like bro relationship where it's like, hey, we're on the same side, but also you're my competition kind of thing. Unlike Betty and Veronica, who were like that, but they wanted to kill each other.
Right. Yeah, their rivalry was a little bit more friendly, even though they were real people and not cartoon characters.
Yeah.
So in the original movie, a single predator visits Earth and stalks an elite paramilitary group led by Dutch Schaefer, played by Schwarzenegger. And Dutch's team is on a mission to save hostages in a Central American rainforest, but they're quickly overwhelmed by the superior technology and hunting skills of the lone Yahucha.
Arnold. Yeah, Arnold fights a predator. It's pretty cool. But it's interesting too, because like what makes the predator so cunning is like the fact that it has that camouflage. Like you can't see it. It's completely invisible. And so with that as a factor, it's almost invincible. But it short circuits when it hits the water. And so even in the second movie, there's some water and it takes away the Inviso technology and they're not able to use it. And so it's a lot easier to take them down once you can see where they're aiming, and you like when you get rid of the mystique, they're actually a lot easier to fight than when they're just invisible and you're like, what's going on? I have no idea, because it's like sniping you, from a distance. So it's kind of like you have to keep the predator shrouded in mystery, because that's when it's the most powerful. But when you can see it, then all bets are almost off. Like it's still advanced, it's still a warrior, it's still strong. Like they're not to be trifled with, but it's almost like a different playing field. That's why in the comic I was like, the AVP comic, Archie versus Predator, would have been really cool if they showed us that this was like a stealth training mission, because stealth is probably something that's super important to them with the camouflage. So
yeah, can you kill everybody in this high school without anybody noticing?
Right. That was the true test.
Right. Yeah. Well, it would have been nice to see that. So in Predator 2, that is the 1990 sequel. So only 3 years later, it is also written by the Thomas brothers and stars Danny Glover, Gary Busey, and Bill Paxton, who was in all the franchise movies at this time because he was also doing Aliens. So Predator 2 is actually, however, set 10 years after the first film in a fictionalized future Los Angeles. And that version of the future is really crazy and weird because they came up with it in the 90s. So, but now there's a Predator loose in Los Angeles. So Glover plays Police Lieutenant Michael Harrigan, and much of the movie revolves around him fighting a war against the
Murtaugh.
Colombian, and yeah, he basically is. Yeah, still Murtaugh. Most of the movie revolves around him fighting a war between the Colombian and Jamaican drug cartels. The appearance of the Yahucha escalates. I have to say
it's so hard to take it seriously. Yahucha
escalates the gang conflicts as it kills its way through the LA underworld until Harrigan is forced to engage it. So he barely survives, managing to kill the alien with his own smart disk, and we are finally given a glimpse of their spacecraft where there is a xenomorph skull inside.
Yeah, so I rewatched this, and we want everybody to know that that's what we're trying to do here, because we want to do AVP, Alien versus Predator, someday, and maybe that's what it was, but it looks exactly like a xenomorph.
Huh. Well, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I know that I read somewhere that they were basically like 20th Century Fox owns both of these franchises. Why don't we just throw that in there as an Easter egg? And it was never intended to be more than like an Easter egg. But what happened between Predator 2 and AVP, which AVP is 14 years later, so it's 2004. In those intervening years, Dark Horse got the license to publish comics for both franchises. And they started making Alien versus Predator comics where we actually had characters that were predators that were following through various adventures where they're hunting the xenomorphs across the galaxy. And they actually had like narrative threads that like wove it all together. And so that brings us to Alien versus Predator in 2004, which is directed by Paul W.S. Anderson. and he was the director of Resident Evil 1, producer of 2 and 3, and director of 4 through 6 and the movie Event Horizon. So that's somebody that we're very familiar with because he's made basically even the Resident Evil movies that he didn't direct, he produced them, and Milla Jovovich is his wife. So that's why she's in all 6 of those movies. So yeah, it's actually surprising that she's not an AVP, but based on how he does stuff.
But she would kill both sides, and it's like,
exactly,
we want to see the alien versus the Predator. We don't want to see, I mean, it would be cool to watch her take them both down, but
right.
That's not what the movie
is. Alice is too powerful in those movies for what they do in these. So AVP starred Sanaa Lathan and Lance Henriksen. So Sanaa Lathan played Blade's mother in the original Blade movie.
Oh, okay.
And then she's the heroine in this movie that sort of you follow through the entire film, because a lot of the characters, as they are in most Predator movies, are expendable.
Yeah.
So Lance Henriksen is actually reprising his role as Bishop in the Alien franchise, although he's actually playing Mr. Wayland in this movie, who's the creator of Charles Wayland, the creator of the Weyland-Yutani Corp. So this movie ties together like the Predator and Alien mythology really nicely, except in the Alien films, they will eventually retcon AVP out. But in the Predator films, it's still canon. So there are 2 separate canons here. The AVP movies are canon to the Predator franchise, but not to the Alien franchise. So just, keep that in mind. But so at any rate, in this film, it's revealed that the Predators have been visiting Earth every 100 years for millennia. And so they use humans as hosts for xenomorph eggs in order to create the ultimate prey for them to hunt as a rite of passage. And this really makes more sense than them just hunting humans on Earth, because once you create a giant xenomorph, like, it is a threat. I don't care what your technology is. Like, they bleed acid. They can, like, break open your helmet with that little hammer thing that comes out of their mouth. I mean, they can use you to create more of themselves. Like, they're really intimidating. So this movie, to me, kind of made the Predators almost make more sense, where I was like, oh yeah, well, they would hunt something that's that terrifying.
Yeah.
So.
And it's interesting too, because like they encased the pyramid where they fight in ice, like it was buried under ice. And at first I thought it was just because it's been around for so long, but then I kind of wondered. I was like, well, in the comic they point out that the Predators come whenever it's like there's intense heat, and they say that in both the first 2 Predator movies. It's like when it's really hot out, that's when the Predators come to town. So maybe they actually prefer the heat. So maybe having the AVP arena be in ice was kind of like a way for them to keep the aliens in check, but also to be like, you know, like when somebody takes an ice bath or something like that, where it's like it's a challenge. Maybe that was a challenge for them, is to go somewhere where it's not hot. So that way they're really, this is for like elite warriors, not just the regular ones that would hunt humans, but like the best of the best would come fight the aliens.
Well, that seems to be supported by the movie too, because they actually discover an alien queen that they're holding down there. And it, I mean, this isn't in the notes, but the way it gets free is it actually has some of its babies come out and intentionally cut themselves so that they can bleed on the chains, and the acid breaks through the chains, and then the queen is able to get out and start wreaking havoc. So the main character in this movie is actually Lex Woods, who's played by Sanaa Lathan. And then the wealthy industrialist Charles Wayland is kind of the other main character. But in present times, there's a team of experts. They're sent down to investigate a thermal tunnel that was created in the Antarctic. So basically this big, perfectly circular tunnel goes through the iceberg and down to the pyramid where the aliens are. And the humans are like trying to figure out what that is. So they discover a sacrificial chamber of
What'd you say it was called again?
Eggs.
Sacrificial chamber.
I had to work that in the notes because we quote it so often. They discovered a sacrificial chamber of xenomorph eggs, while on the surface, 3 Yahucha begin to kill their support team as they descend to fight the xenomorphs. So, yeah, like the predators kind of arrive after the aliens have already started to wake up and the humans are already down there kind of making a mess of things. So,
Hmm.
but this movie really isn't about the predators trying to kill the humans. They kill the support team on the surface, I guess, just, I don't know, just to do it. But they're really there for their sort of elite hunt that they're
Yeah.
doing.
I think the
So,
humans were just kind of getting in the way, and they're like, we
yeah,
only
pretty
need
much.
enough of you here in order to have the eggs be able to make the aliens for us to fight them. So we don't really
Right.
need all these extra humans up top. Like, get out of here.
Right. So Lex Woods is actually forced to ally with one of the predators to survive, and she ends up being the sole survivor of the entire incident, human or alien, when the predator ship comes to collect the hunters. So Lex is actually given. There's a moment where the dying predator that she actually has to mercy kill him because he's gonna be killed anyway, so she has to kill him. But before he goes, he puts this little like scratch on her cheek, and whenever the predator ship arrives, they see that and they recognize that like she was a worthy hunter because she survived this hunt when even their warrior didn't. And so they see
Hmm.
that mark and they give her a spear to sort of like recognize her. And then they retrieve the body of their predator ally, who's named Scar, I guess. There's they have names in the production credits, but they don't have names in the movie in the
Hmm.
actual dialogue. So I don't know, but when I was looking at the synopsis, they were like, "Oh, the trio of predators," and they all had like various names. So,
Hmm.
um, at any rate, the movie ends with the predator ship is taking off, but unfortunately, a chest burster erupts from the chest of the predator corpse, and a new species is born: the Pred Alien.
Not good. Or the Yahooch alien.
Keep your hooch alien away from me.
Put that thing away.
So, Paul W.S. Anderson, I actually watched the commentary of the movie recently, and I didn't watch the originals, but I have AVP because for whatever reason, I just really like that one. It was PG-13, which was not something that was popular with the fans, but I think the way that it builds up the lore for both
Yeah.
franchises is really satisfying, and so I like that one a lot. But he said that he was directly inspired by the AVP comics,
Hmm.
and he'd actually been trying to get 20th Century Fox to give him like the rights to make this movie for years and years and years since he was a fan of the comics. So
Nice.
that's why this exists at all. So really Dark Horse has influenced Fox and vice versa as far
Hmm.
as all that goes. So AVP Requiem is the second AVP crossover movie and the fourth Predator movie, and it was released in 2007. So it basically picks up like 5 minutes after AVP. So the Predator ship, because there's now a Pred alien on board that kills everyone, it crashes in Gunnison, Colorado, where the Pred alien begins a brutal killing spree at a nearby town. And so the Predators dispatch a veteran cleaner Predator that's here to kill it, basically. And humanity is once again caught in the crossfire. And my memory of this movie is that the idea was really cool, but that they shot everything so dark that it was really hard to see what was going on.
Yeah.
And it's really a problem when you're watching like an action or sci-fi movie and there's supposed to be cool stuff happening, but you can't see it. So that's really a strike against the movie. And I looked into kind of the reviews on IMDb and stuff, and that seems to be everybody's
Hmm.
consensus. They also didn't bring back Lex, which I think was a shame because she was a really cool character, and it was neat to have a human that was
Yeah.
recognized by the Predator Society as being like powerful enough that they're like, wow, you're actually a warrior. Here's a weapon. We're gonna kind of like induct you into our
Hmm.
society. So kind of a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
But then 3 years later, we have Predators, which was directed by Nimrod Antal and produced by Robert Rodriguez, who you would know from Once Upon a Time in Mexico and what else? What else did he do? Sin City and a lot of kind of crime drama-y type movies. And it stars Adrian Brody, Topher Grace, Alice Braga, Walton Goggins, and Lawrence Fishburne. And in this movie, a group of efficient killers from Earth have been captured and deposited on a predator game preserve planet with two warring factions of predators. And if you have not seen this movie, this one is freaking awesome.
I don't know if I've seen this one.
It's really cool. So I don't want to spoil it, but you find out sort of gradually throughout the story why each of these people have been taken from Earth, and they all have like some dark, violent, horrible thing that they've done in their past. Danny Trejo is there as well. I forgot to mention him, but he's one of the people too. Like some of them are like violent revolutionaries. Some of them have done like really dark medical experiments on people. Some of them are like ex special ops people, but they all have kind of an edge to them where they're like not super redeemable people, but the predators have picked them specifically because they're like, we know that they are predators. Right. So the movie is kind of like a play on like, well, the predators are the aliens, but they're also these people that have been dropped on this planet. But they have to sort of figure out how to survive. There's even a character that's he's like an expert in like Japanese combat and like katana wielding from Japan that gets deposited here. So like the action in this one is awesome. And yeah, they have like two disparate factions from the predators as well that are also trying to see like, well, they want to kill each other and the humans that have been deposited on the planet. So there's a lot going on, but yeah, this one's really cool. Like I enjoyed that one a lot. So we also have The Predator, which is the sixth film from 2018. And that was directed by Shane Black, who actually co-starred in the original movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So this is set between the events of Predator 2 and Predators. And it follows a group of PTSD-afflicted soldiers and one scientist, played by Olivia Munn, that have to team up to fight off a pair of predators. And during the events of the movie, it's discovered that the predators are actually trying to improve themselves by using human DNA and other organisms that they've kidnapped and sort of respect for their hunting ability from Earth. So this is kind of like I remember a scene where they're like examining the predator body and she's like, there's human genome in there.
Oh, yeah.
And they're just like, oh, what's going on? So that's kind of the twist in that one. And then finally, this is the one that I have not seen, Prey, which is the seventh movie. It released in 2022, but it was direct to Hulu. And it is a prequel to the series taking place in the northern Great Plains in the year 1719.
Oh, wow.
It follows the woman Neru, who's a young Comanche hunter trying to prove herself. She has to protect her people from a vicious, powerful predator, as well as French fur traders who are killing the buffalo that their tribe needs for survival. So that actually sounds like
really different.
Very unique.
Yeah.
But it's actually kind of cool to like, because AVP established like, well, they've been here in the past multiple times. It's cool to go back and go like, well, let's see that. Let's see like a Native American hunter that is trying to deal with the predators and like, how did she get through that? And then actually scheduled to come out in 2025, we have Predator Badlands.
Oh, wow.
And that's supposed to come out on November 7th, and it has the same writer-director as Prey. So that's pretty much the Predator franchise for everybody out there.
Nice.
So we're going to move on to some listener comments, everybody. Yay! So
Yay!
thank you for doing that. It's nice to have the opportunity to get feedback from you guys. The first one we have is from Nate Degree 96, who's really just my friend Nate, who thank you for being a friend of the podcast. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
But he is also Captain Continuity when it comes to DC Comics. So he's got all this stuff downloaded in his brain. So he says Captain Atom, or Nathaniel Atom, ended up in the Wildstorm universe at the end of Batman Superman number 6 in 2004. When he piloted a starship into a giant kryptonite meteor to save the Earth, resulting in a huge explosion. So folks on New Earth believed him to be dead, but he actually went to the pre-Flashpoint Earth 50, which was the Wildstorm universe, where he develops a romantic relationship with Engineer of the Authority. So that's a little bit more flavor about Captain Atom moving from the DC universe to the Wildstorm one. We also had somebody, Loring Bush 1455 says, Wildcats was amazing, but I like Gen 13 so much better. And so I read your comment on YouTube, and I actually went to the DC app and started reading some Gen 13.
Nice.
Since it is up there. Unfortunately, Volume 1 has issues 0, 1, and 2, and then none of the rest of the series. And then it skips to Volume 2. where there's clearly established continuity that's happened, and I'm missing all of that. So
That sucks.
I went on a wild goose chase to try and find Gen 13, the deluxe edition, because that came out a few years back, and it has like all of volume 1, so I could read it. But that is out of print, and so I think the cheapest used copy on Amazon was $157, and then there were signed copies by the artist J. Scott Campbell on his website for $85. So right now, that's a little too rich for my blood, so I'm going to have to wait to read more Gen 13. But I definitely want to get into it because it seems like it's a fun book.
Cool.
So,
well, our next comment is from Nate again, and it was in response to our Wildcats episode where I said Angel Breaker shows up, and Cole is like, "Oh, I know who you are," and I'm just like, "I have no idea who you are," so it didn't do anything for me. So Nate chimed in the comments and said, "In case it's of interest or otherwise helps, Angel Breaker is a newer character introduced in 2022 who was actually trained by both Black Canary and Zealot, in addition to Lady Shiva and Talia al Ghul. She's also in a Batman-Catwoman type relationship with Ghostmaker, a member of Batman Inc. So Angel Breaker helps to further bridge the Wildstorm subsection of DC with multiple other facets to a certain extent." So that's pretty neat that, you know, it's like we're breaking over between franchises, so to speak, by having characters that are, you know, have one foot in both, or, you know, have been trained by multiple members. So it's kind of neat to, you know, see that. And he says also, for more on Angel Breaker and Zealot's connection, check out Shadow War and Night Terrors Angel Breaker, a 2-issue mini part of the larger Night Terrors event.
Yeah, so I haven't read Night Terrors, but from what I can see in DC Universe Infinite, it's a massive event with like 50 tie-in issues. So I just kind of got overwhelmed and was like, maybe I'll not do that. But I didn't know any of this either. So I really like the idea of having a character that is trained by people from both DC and Wildstorm, because yeah, it makes it more natural to be like, well, this is just a crossover character that exists in both. So yeah, it's cool knowing that. I kind of wish that I had that background when I read the story, though. But
yeah, just a little bit of extra snippet at the beginning of like, here are the characters. Like, I know sometimes you complain about that in certain stories where it's like, I know who these characters are. Why are they giving me background? But it's for people like us when we're reading like either Archie comics or, you know, some Wildstorm stuff of like, okay, who exactly is this person, or what is their continuity in what I am reading? Like, which version of the character is this? That's important too.
Yeah, that's true.
So we reviewed Captain America Dimension Z, or something in Dimension Z.
Castaway in Dimension Z.
Castaway, yes. Like 2 years ago. So we actually got a comment 2 weeks ago from at Green Goblin's Ock Venom, which cool name, but it's kind of confusing. Which camp are you in? Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Venom, or are you all of them? Is it like the Sinister 3 or something? But this person says, I'm a little late for commenting. I haven't read the story, but enjoyed your review of it. As Mike said, Zola was introduced in the 70s and didn't become a big villain until much later. I've read over 200 issues of Captain America from a DVD-ROM I bought, and Zola has only appeared once so far. And I think I'm around 1977. So yeah, he hasn't become a huge villain yet in the comics I've been reading. I will say the 70s comics are pretty intense. Cap, Falcon, and some other S.H.I.E.L.D. characters keep dealing with one intense threat after another. Sadly, Cap and Falcon often don't get a break. Their lives are very hectic. Well, that sucks for them, unfortunately. And we also had another comment from just 1 year ago from Herb Varley 5953, who says this series really made go from ironically saying that I like Captain America to being a legit Steve Rogers fan. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That, you know, it seems like a lot of people really like that comic. I think I didn't like it that much, but maybe it was another one of those like context issues or something. But
it was, I think that you didn't like how it did a weird alternate universe sci-fi story, and you were looking forward to it being more of just a Captain America story. I think
maybe I just wasn't ready for that.
I think you were also like, and I believe Sharon Carter dies at the end of it as well, which was it ends on kind of like a low note, and that's usually not a good sign for your rating. So I do remember that. I think you're just not as into Cap as well, and you were like,
yeah.
I'm just not as into that character. So, but yeah, I appreciate people going back and watching previous stuff and commenting because we really haven't gotten feedback until this year. So it's nice to see that on some of the older episodes, and I'm glad that people are still checking those out.
Well, and it's fun for us to sort of revisit those old episodes too and think about it and, get some information that you're like, oh yeah, I did ask that question 2 years ago and now we get some more information. So it's, it's just kind of neat to have a callback like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, that's going to wrap up our after show for our review of Archie versus Predator on We Like Comics because they have no bone saws ready.
Oh, baby.
If you haven't already, visit our website, bonelesscomicspodcast.com, where you can view the podcast as well as information about us, your hosts, and a link to our new Printify shop where you can order Mike's banana designs like the cool Archie Predator one that you see in this episode.
And if you like seeing the art and details of physical comics as well as an engaging discussion, check out my YouTube shorts and follow us on social media at Boneless Comics Podcast or on Blue Sky Social or X at Boneless Comics 1.
Yes, and if you haven't subscribed on YouTube yet, why haven't you? Now is the time. Make sure you hit that notification bell to get updates. And if you want even more comic book chaos, check out Spidey Joe's One-Shots on YouTube, where I expose the real problem behind every hero's failures, Spider-Man. Don't get me started.
You somehow explained why the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Wildcats were a problem because of Spider-Man, but I can't wait to see how you explain that the kids of Riverdale and the Predator are a problem because of Spider-Man. Because they don't exist even in a superhero universe. So good luck with that. And on that note, everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Comics.
Because they have no